Hello, board members. This is Kyle Cronk, President CEO of the South Sound YMCA. I'm coming to you today for a kind of a longer video about some of our current planning as we talk about resuming, recovering, and revitalizing our YMCA during this unprecedented time. And I'll go over in some detail. I'll also send this out in an email so that you can review it. And if it's kind of a working document, so if you have questions about it, I would love your feedback or things that we haven't thought about. But rest assured that our staff, not only are we delivering specific closure camp essential services for childcare, but we are in the midst of significant planning. So let me start by saying that we're working with YUSA, we're working with our colleagues across the state of Washington, which has been really helpful, a lot of collaborative effort going on. We're also working with our local government, state government, and the local health authority because that's going to be pretty specific, actionable data that we're gonna get from them. So let's talk about kind of the overarching big picture structure here. We're talking about resuming operations. That's kind of a timeline that is rolling right now. That's any time from late-ish May all the way into July. Then we have, we're looking at recovery somewhere to 6 to 9 months. And obviously our work through these time periods that I'm laying out is concurrent. There's work being done now that, maybe we won't even do until December. And then there's the revitalization, like how long is it going to get back to normal and what does that look like with respect to all the social distancing guidelines that are going to be there. So that's kind of where we are, the three big buckets of planning, and then each of our levels of operations, whether it's youth and community development type operations and programs, youth sports, childcare, summer day camp, resident camp, all of that. We have specific teams in those areas that are working in those areas, and then obviously in branch operations. And then you can look at aquatics, and you can look at family programming and membership and health and well-being and classes like that. So I want to give you a couple specific things that we're talking about with respect to what are the priorities when we think about reopening in this current scenario. And the very first thing that we need to make sure is it safe to open and operate, specifically for our staff and then members and anyone that interacts, participants and stuff like that. So health and safety is our number one priority. We also want to be flexible and nimble enough to be able to respond to community needs. So just like we did with emergency childcare, should there be another crisis or something else breaks open that needs our assistance, then we definitely need to take the time and activate that. Next thing that we want to is our priority is maximizing our philanthropic opportunities. So there are times now our community can help. We can be a place to direct resources. We want to make sure that we're taking advantage of that as well. We also, obviously, we need to start activating our member and program areas that are going to drive revenue. We have a lot of money going out the door. We don't have as much money coming in the door. We need to make sure that that's a high priority as well. Again, no money, no mission. We can't do good without that first part. We also need to make sure that we're effectively managing expenses. And we need to take a conservative approach to making sure how we bring staff back on, how we're managing that. And as you know, we have great resources in Colleen, and all of our executive leadership team is spot on with respect to that. And then we want to make sure that we're highlighting our social responsibility programming in our communities. We need to take advantage or better advantage of the media opportunities to make sure that people understand the relevancy of the why, what we've done, how we do it, how we're always going to be here. All of those we need to highlight. So then I want to talk a little bit about how are we determining when it's time to open and what gets opening. So obviously, or maybe this isn't obvious, but in our perspective, the external force is the government and the guidelines with the CDC and our local health department. And then maybe a little less obvious is our supply chain. Can we get the necessary equipment and sanitation stuff and personal protective equipment? Can we get everything that we need in order to be able to operate in a safe manner? Back to priority number one. And then we have, financial assumptions. What percent of members are coming back? How many have been on hold? What kind of campaigns are we running? What kind of percent of campers, if we're going to run day camp, if we're going to run resident camp? So we're going through, a number of scenarios to make that happen as well. What percent of our staff can come back? Some other assumptions that we're making as we're going into these levels of planning throughout the kind of the 3 tiers that I talked about is we do assume that and it's likely that there's going to be continued social distancing requirements. So how do we kind of redirect or reconfigure our, whether it's day camp or resident camp or our facility operations in a way that encourages social distancing, just like Costco's done and Safeway and other places. We think unemployment's going to continue to be pretty high, above 10% for some time. How will that affect membership? How will that affect things? We already talked about programming areas will need to be reconfigured. Obviously, cleaning and assuring our membership and participants that what the YMCA is doing is essentially by the book. That's going back to that local authority and the CDC guidelines. The CDC has been amazing. I've been on 3 different calls through YUSA with the director of CDC, which has been pretty impressive that our collective effort across the country has kind of made the Y kind of be the expert in this along with the CDC from a health perspective. So that's been encouraging. So we're going to have to clean more frequently. Going to have, maybe we do staggered drop-offs and pickups so that we don't cross families and all that sort of stuff. And obviously, some of our planning, we may have to submit our plans on how we're going to operate specifically to local health departments, just like Forma has done with respect to building the Y in Shelton. They have a daily sheet of things that they need to ensure anybody that comes for deliveries or is a visitor. So we're planning on that as well. So like I said, I will send this plan out, probably attached to or maybe not attached to the video, but I'll send the link. This is long. It's probably 7-8 minutes, but it's worth the time. Thank you for being a volunteer to this organization. Like everyone has said, it's overused and overplayed, but there is no playbook. There is no right way to do this, and my virtual door is wide open. As call me, email me. I am curious about what your feedback on this plan is. Make sure that you're fully on board. And then there'll be some connection points in those 3, resuming, recovering, and revitalizing, where we can use specific volunteer support. And some of that is going to be around advocacy and advocating for the next round of the CARES Act. There's a bill called HR 6408 right now that is looking at the nonprofits who are self-insured on unemployment and making sure that gets erased, because right now our liability is quite high. Hopefully that'll get resolved in the next one, and I'll send specific directions on how you can be a YMCA champion and advocate. I hope you're all staying safe. I hope you're all doing as well as you can be. I hope your businesses are as successful as they can be. And again, my virtual door is open. Thank you so much for being a part of the YMCA. Thanks to you, we are relevant in our community and building stronger, happier kids and families. Thank you.